So hi everybody, my name is Tom Bridge. I'm here to talk with you today about the fact that it's dangerous out there and you should take some of these tools with you as you go through this process. Simply because tools are really helpful. They let us do our jobs better, faster, and they give us insights into knowledge and to deep parts of the systems that we work with every day without necessarily having to train our users on how to get that information for us. We can install tools on their machines and implement reporting regimes so that they can give us information without even knowing that they are, which is super. So who the heck am I? My name is Tom Bridge. I live in Washington, D.C. I am a partner at Technolutionary LLC in D.C. We are a full-service IT consulting firm. If it plugs into a wall, it's our problem. We work with clients as small as 2 to as many as 200. So we have a lot of fun people that we work with every day. These are tools that we have picked up from our clients in some cases, from other consultants, from admins like yourselves. I wrote a tool to deploy Monkey. You might have heard about it in this morning's session with with Ed Marzak from Google called Monkey in a Box, and you can find it at my GitHub, which is right up there. I also write a newsletter every week or two, give or take, on bits and bobs from the Mac infosphere called TechnoBits, and that link is up there. My Twitter is @tbridge. I talk a lot about baseball and DC politics, not the capital stuff, like the really local stuff. So I'm not that terribly interesting on Twitter unless you live in DC and like the Nationals, or just like the Nationals. Go Nationals. So if as we're going along, you are thinking that I might have missed something, I have built a Google form. And that Google form we've been tweeting out for about a week or so now. And there are a bunch of entries in there, and we'll give you the link to everything that everybody has put into that form sometime later today. Probably at the end of this session in a slide just like this one. So if you have a tool that you love and that you think you should share with everybody, put it in there. Please use the form for good and not for evil. Thank you. So what constitutes a tool? Because we got to think about that. What does that mean? Is that a hammer? Is that a drill press? Is that a CNC router? So what's a tool for us when it comes to what we're doing and what we're thinking about? A tool is an application of specialized knowledge tuned toward diagnostics and workflows that gives you a shortcut or additional derived data and saves you time and/or effort. That's a pretty good explanation for what the tools are that we use. They are shortcuts. They get us useful information without having to go deep into the technical systems with our users. And they're really tuned toward our diagnostics and workflows environments so that we get information about a problem before the problem gets serious. Or while a problem is serious, before it gets really, really systems fail, people die serious. So I broke this down when I was thinking about this. I had to think about this in terms of what kind of tools do I use? What kind of categories do they all fit? And so I came up with these 8 categories: Wi-Fi tools, network tools, deployment tools, command line tools, audio tools, because yes, we still have to do audio, disk tools, documentation and detail tools, and physical tools, because physical tools are still very much a part of our job. Our job starts at the wire, which means we have a physical layer associated with us. So that means physical tools in a lot of cases. So let's start with the Wi-Fi tools, because this is a place where I just spent an entire day teaching a workshop on Wi-Fi stuff, and I found a lot of really awesome tools that I think are useful for everybody. First up, Adrian Granados' awesome Wi-Fi Explorer. It's $15, it's in the Maz. There's a link in the presentation. You'll notice that there's a Maz link or a Maz icon in the bottom of those slides. Those are just the ones that indicate you can buy them on the Maz as well. What does Wi-Fi Explorer do? It starts to use your airport card or whatever wireless interface you happen to be working with, and it helps you disaggregate all of the data that it sees. Because your computer might be associated with a specific wireless access point on a specific SSID, but there might be other instances of that SSID nearby, or other SSIDs that you might find useful. So why not, in the case of this particular app, give me the MAC address of that BSSID, just so that I know which access point I'm connected to is the one that I'm actually connected to, on the frequency that I'm supposed to be on, as well as give me information like the signal level of the various APs that are present. You can see that we took this one yesterday while we were sitting pretty close by a pair of access points, one of the lovely Penn State ones, which are super fancy and are working out really, really well. So congrats to Penn State on a network upgrade. It gives you channel information so that you can see that we're, for the most part, hanging out on a 40 megahertz channel width. So channel 100 plus the channel above it, as well as channel 108 plus the channel above it. And you can see the band, the media mode, the minimum rate required to connect to that access point, which means that if you are below 12 megabits per second, you cannot associate with this access point. Super helpful to know if you're troubleshooting a problem with your user. I can't join the Wi-Fi. You're right along the periphery. Your minimum data rate is much lower than the data rate of the minimum data rate on the access point. Therefore, you can't connect. Please move closer. Or it's time for you to go find another access point, so that you can put that up in the ceiling and get closer to them. Because again, they're your users, you have to cater to some of their needs. You can also look at signal strength graphs below that. And I moved right along. We do have a lot of tools to talk about, so we are going to take this at a pretty good clip. Insider is another app that works very much along the same lines. There is a new version of Insider called Insider Office, which is designed to do a lot more. It's a lot more expensive, it's $250. But it's from the nice people at MetaGeek who make Channelizer, which is super rad, and we're going to talk about that one later because there's a hardware element to that one. What Insider does, again, same information as Wi-Fi Explorer, a little more expensive, but you get a little bit different GUI approach to this. So take a look at both. You've got trials available, at least on Insider, and Adrian Granados' website is excellent for taking you through the tour of his app before you have to lay out money for it. I ended up with both and don't regret it at all. But again, you can see what your max data rate is, your min data rate, the type of encryption. These are all orderable columns. They're filterable based upon the SSID that's broadcasting, the MAC address of the unit, the channel that it's being broadcast on, as well as signal. So you can say, I really only want to see the really, really weak Wi-Fi networks so that I can try and find which one is connecting from the point that I'm at that's really just a garbage signal at this point. So you get a lot of different options there. Wi-Fi Signal is a menu bar icon. I love it to pieces because it's a customizable version of the Apple airport icon. So you can say, I want to see signal quality. So this was the AT&T Wi-Fi network downstairs yesterday. I have an AC laptop, so I'm connected at 486 megabits per second, which is totally awesome. Upstream, not that good though, so. Kind of 6 in one, half dozen in the other. But you get a lot of information, including a signal over noise over time graph there at the bottom. It will also recommend you channels if you are, for where you're sitting. And based upon the SSID that you're associated with, it's going to say things like, you know what, channel 7's really crowded right now. Why don't you drop this AP down to channel 1 for where you're sitting? Granted, that's a single point location, and unless you're planning to tune your access point to a specific user, that might not be the right channel setting for your entire network as a whole. So take that with a grain of salt. But you can also set it so that up at the top, you can display the channel that you're connected to. You can display your current RSSI. You can display the current network that you're connected to, the hardware identifier of that particular network. So it's very extensible, and it's $1. It's really good for $1. NetSpot has a couple of different tools that are super helpful for all of you admins out here. I love this tool, 2 pieces. It is so helpful in my day-to-day life because it lets me do things like this. And is that going to stay? All right, cool. That is a heat map of Wi-Fi signal in one of our clients' offices. We could actually walk around with it. We fed it a blueprint, and it let us determine what the width of that space was. And so at that point, we could tell you where the Wi-Fi was good and where it maybe isn't very, very good. It has heat maps for RSSI, signal level, noise level, all manner of things. It is super, super helpful. There's a free version if you just want to start playing around with it. There's a $150 version, and there's a enterprise site-wide license for about $500. So if you are really not convinced, there's a free demo to start playing around. And I strongly recommend that you play around, because mapping your Wi-Fi environment is super helpful. To do it on a regular basis, to take the hour or two to walk your building with your laptop and determine what has changed since the last time you surveyed, because you can have multiple surveys in the same document, so that you can see that the survey from January was really, really awesome. And I don't understand why I can't get Wi-Fi out in the garden anymore, especially down in the foyer where everyone likes to spend their time come March. So March comes around, and suddenly, man, I'm just not getting the signal I used to get down here. And it's going to let you start to think about, well, what would cause that? What's different now than it was before? And the answer is plant your access points in the spring, because electromagnetic interference can be generated by trees. Why? Because they are full of water. And so at that point, as the trees bloom out, your signal goes down, because they are now absorbing and attenuating some of that wireless signal for you. So plant your access points in the spring. NetSpot's super helpful for determining what kind of environmental factors might be affecting your Wi-Fi network, especially if you're mapping it on the regular. Another helpful tool, and this one is free, is also from Adrian Granados. It's called the AirTool. Packet captures on a per channel basis from the menu bar. That's awesome, because then you can feed that to Wireshark, which we'll talk about later, and start to see where the problem is. So you can do it on a per channel, per SSID basis. You can set it for 20, 40, 80 megahertz channel widths. Super, super helpful in terms of mitigating some of those issues. So here you can see what my current status is. I'm associated with the ATT Wi-Fi network. I'm on channel 52. I've got a 40 megahertz channel width. If I just wanted to go ahead and capture all channels, I can it switches off my wireless connection, it puts it into promiscuous mode, and just says, give me all of your packets, please. Which is super awesome. Maybe a little bit scary, but still super awesome. So let's talk a little bit about network tools. How many people in here are directly responsible for the networks on which they operate every day, from stem to stern? Not everybody. Network tools are super helpful for going to the network guy who is likely convinced that you're a bunch of Mac users and therefore don't know what you're talking about. How many people have that particular problem? I'm not going to out anybody. I'm just going to say that I've heard that that happens once in a while. These are super helpful tools for taking up diagnostic information and feeding it back to your network engineers in forms in which they recognize and can make your life easier, which is super rad. Wireshark. How many people here are using Wireshark already? That's more people than I thought. That's awesome. Wireshark is a packet capture utility. It will, based upon the interface that you're connected to, capture all of the packets in a way in which you can start to interpret the data that's contained therein. Inet Network Toolbox is available from the Maz. It's $10, but what it is it's a network device scanner. And it tells me this when I'm connected to this network right here. And based upon the interface that you're plugged into, it can search for bonjour services. It can just search for other devices that are present on your network, and it gives you a lot of information about this. This is the Caswell router that's upstream from us here at Penn State. I can tell you the MAC address is 08357100E222. And it was visible on the network when I was actually doing this process. It is the host gateway in this particular case. It will also read the ARP table of other nearby devices so that you can see devices that might have been there recently but maybe aren't there right now, which is super helpful to figure out why your wireless network just dropped offline. It could be because the controller is no longer visible on your network, which was a problem that we had setting up for the Wi-Fi demonstration the other day. And then when we plugged it all back in, it got a new IP address, and oh crap, yeah, it doesn't have bonjour. How the hell am I going to find that? The answer is really easy, because in this particular case, you can sort this result list by IP address of the box itself, the vendor of the MAC address itself. Apple identifies their Macs pretty well, so does Ruckus, so does Aruba, so do all of the major manufacturers. And so you can sort it so that you can see, show me all the Netgear boxes on my network, show me my switches, which is great. In these particular cases, you can also set so that you can look at Time Machine services. So if any of you are actually running Time Machine as a network service on your network, this is a MacAdmins conference. I'm not going to say that that won't happen. It's really helpful to actually look at some of the other things that are present on your network, including if you're running airports at home. This is a super way to actually take a look at what the airports are doing. The next one is an iOS tool. And it's super helpful. It's called Subnet Insight. It will use the Wi-Fi card on your machine to do the same kind of scan, but just over the wireless and show you all of your wireless devices. So in this particular case, the AT&T Wi-Fi network, whoever was running a Mac called Rufio, I'm sorry, I've just displayed your MAC address in public. You were on 192.168.0.57 at 11:47 this morning. And you were part of a work group, so you're probably running something bound to AD at least a little bit. So you can gather a lot of this information through the NetBIOS service that's attached to your network, so you can actually look at a lot of these helpful things. So deployment tools. I want to stop here for a second and talk about one really important thing, because I'm not going to get involved in anyone's religious wars today. I am not here to tell you that you need, today, later, tomorrow at the bar maybe, we can have that conversation. But here I'm your friend, and I am going to tell you things that are helpful for you as my friend. I'm not going to tell you to use Monkey instead of Casper. I'm not here to tell you to use FileWave instead of Absolute. I am not here to tell you any of those things. If you would like, though, there are wonderful sponsors out there. And we'd like to thank our sponsors for being here this afternoon. And please do go talk to them. They offer incredible wealth of tools and knowledge available to you, the user, as part of this conference. So that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the standard tools that are useful for deployment that are platform agnostic, mostly. And again, I'm not a Casper shop, I'm not an Absolute shop, I'm not a FileWave shop, I'm a Mac shop. So we'll just leave that out there. Pacifist. Who here is using Pacifist right now? Yes! That makes me so happy. Pacifist is super helpful because it will let you take apart packages, it will let you open them up, see what's inside, crack them like little delicious eggs, and it's wonderful because you can actually see what they're doing. Getting a good understanding of what's inside your packages, of what you're actually deploying to your users is really, really helpful, and Pacifist is useful for that. It will also search through your receipts and help you figure out what got installed, where and when, what's not there now. Those are kind of things that might be useful. One of the other pieces that would be super useful for you, especially those of you who are working in an environment that won't have a create user structure for you, is the ability to create a user package. We roll this out a lot of places where we want to have our local admin user present upon all of our client machines. This is really helpful for that. It generates a package based on that. So I can say, put my logo on that, call it local admin, give it a user ID of 499, and UUID that's matched that way, generate a package ID for me, and then you type in your password at the end, click build, it gives you a deployable package that you can deploy out with pretty much anything, ARD, any kind of management solution, MDMs in some circumstances, as well as ARD, USB stick and an intern, which is one of my least favorite methods of deployment, but is still a valid option in many cases. But this gives you an option whereby you can actually deploy a user without having to go through that process. It simplifies it, do a job once, repeat it many, many times without having to do it again. Suspicious package. I love this. I live in DC, so suspicious packages are a way of life for us. But it's a quick look plugin. So if you're used to, clicking on a graphics file and hitting space to see the graphic blow up, click on a package, hit the space bar to invoke quick look, and you get to suddenly see what a package is doing. So you get to see that this is an Apple package. It's signed by software update. It runs 6 install scripts. It's 550 meg, give or take, in its current size, and it puts out about 1 gigabyte of stuff. And it drops a new application binary there in applications for me, drops the new acknowledgements file, and then changes some of the PDF services for the file system so that I can actually do stuff with this. So yeah, it's very, very helpful. It will show you unsigned packages. It will show you what scripts are involved in any of these particular packages. It's the bee's knees. Packages is a free and direct alternative to learning package build at the command line. There are things that you could do with your life that are much more useful than reading the package build man page. Downloading packages in about 30 seconds is one of them. Packages is a tool. How many people here were in the packaging workshop on Tuesday? So you guys spend some quality time with packages. You know what it does. It's a method of building a distribution package or an individual package so that you can actually deploy software on the regular with that tool. AutoPackage. AutoPackage is free, it is directly downloadable, and it is open source. I could show you how to use AutoPackage, but really what I'm going to tell you is to just effing do it. Because life is too short to download the new version of Flash on every single computer you control. Because there was one released today while we were at lunch. AutoPackage can do that for you. AutoPackage can run on the regular with something called AutoPackager, which is by the Lindy Group, and I love them to pieces. Elliot Jordan is here this week. Is he in the room? No? If you see him, give him a high five. Because AutoPackager is an automation engine for an automation engine, which is super great. You feed AutoPackage a recipe. You say, I want you to go get Adobe Flash Player.monkey. And what it will do is it says, okay, goes and finds where the latest version of Flash is, checks the version in its own cache and says, okay, those are different, I need the new one, goes and gets the new one from Adobe for you, repackages and wraps it up, and then shunts it right into your monkey system and puts it in your production catalog if you've got it set up right to do that. You didn't do anything, and it did your job for you. You get to go to lunch early today. That's awesome. And that's what AutoPackage does. There are AutoPackage recipes for pretty much everything that can be deployed in a package. There's also a very active open source community that is adding recipes on the regular. Everybody's got their own recipe repos for the random stuff that you might have to download once or twice. There are a couple of people who work really hard on this project. I know Tim Sutton is on a beach in Cuba right now, and I'd like to thank him, but he's on a beach in Cuba, so really screw that guy. AutoDimage, whichever which you prefer. What this is generated for, it's a free, direct, open source project. You feed it, that's my copy of Yosemite installer. And it would go out and see if there were updates, but I realized this after the fact that I hadn't downloaded a new version of Yosemite since the 10.10.4 update dropped. However, what it would do in that particular case is go through, read which version is actually in the install package from Apple, say, okay, cool, there have been these 8 updates since then, I'm going to download those 2. And then I can also add in my packages at the bottom, and so I could add in my local admin user so that I don't have to deploy it elsewhere. And then it creates a disk image for NetBoot, so that you can, actually for any kind of imaging platform at that point, so that you can lay down and wipe out a machine and restore it to a known good state. Because any operating system, imaging system is really more about moving a machine from an unknown state to a known state, to a known good state. And so if you can go from, I have a machine that is causing problems and is kernel panicking every half hour on the half hour, to I have a machine that has been wiped, the OS reinstalled, and my management platform is ready to go, I can do that with AutoDimage and then just lay down the image with a read-write command in Deploy Studio, which is another free tool that is actually helpful in a lot of different environments. What is it exactly? Well, let's talk about that, because Deploy Studio does many things, and it gives you many different options. It is a workflow tool. It is a NetBoot server, and you feed it a Deploy Studio image, and then you boot off of that NetBoot image, and any machine at that point can reach the repository with a username and password, run a workflow of your choosing, and you can have many different workflows. If you are an education institution that maybe is still supporting people whose primary machines can only run Lion, because there are probably still a few machines that were bought about 6-7 years ago whose terminal OS is Lion. You might have to still be able to image those machines. You can now have a workflow that is separate from your production workflow, which is 10.10 based, I hope, or 10.9 based, I presume, and return that machine, wipe it out, lay down a new OS, lay down your management tools, bind it to Active Directory, bind it to Open Directory, bind it to whatever you like, and you can follow through their key-based, tool-based system. So there have been a lot of really good sessions about Deploy Studio at PSU MacAdmins, so I'm going to kind of leave it there. Suffice it to say, this is a really helpful tool for your environment. for those Monkey users out there. We all know that Monkey I went too far. There we go, thank you. For all of the Monkey users out there, you know that the repository of Monkey files is really just a collection of text files. How many people here read Plists like they read Tolstoy? Like one. Yeah. It's a lot like reading Tolstoy in the original Russian if you're an English speaker. It's a challenge. How about if you had something that actually could parse those files and give you a GUI application to manage that environment so that you can manage your multiple production workflows, so that you can actually manage your manifests and manifest groups, and MonkeyAdmin does that. It is really, really sweet, and Hannes Jutelainen, who wrote it, is a really nice guy. So not that you should use software just because the guy is really nice, but it's super a bonus when that happens. So that takes us to one of our other comments, and I want to go back to my comments about religious wars again. We are not going to talk about Vi or Emacs or Vim or any of those other operating systems that happen to produce text. We are going to talk about my dear friend Nano. The very first text editor I ever worked on was Pico at my Pine terminal on the VAX at Denison University back in 1996. It was a really good time. I learned a lot of awesome keyboard shortcuts in the freshman computing class. It's still around. It's just called Nano now. It's on every Mac in the command line binary and has been for a good long time. Pico kind of got phased out at 10.4 and became Nano. It's a useful text editor that's present on every Mac without having to worry about installing anything or learning. You know, I mean, my favorite story about Emacs was that I launched Emacs once, and then I kind of had to turn off the computer because I couldn't get out again. So, not a... I think it was Vi that I may have launched and gotten stuck in there for days, but I did work my way out eventually, and I did get here today. So yeah, we're going to kind of leave that one alone there. The other big gorilla in the room is bbedit, and I love bare bones. Rich Siegel is a phenomenal programmer and a really nice guy. And they dropped the price down on bbedit to $50 this year. It used to be $100. I paid $100. I was super happy paying $100. It's a really, really awesome tool. And I feel like I'm not even scratching the surface with it yet. And I do a fair amount of bash programming in it. So this is part of Monkey in a Box here. Syntax highlighting based upon the code language you're working in. So this is the bash syntax highlighting. They have Python. They have pretty much everything under the sun. They have some really awesome scriptability features that are present in there, and I encourage you, if you are a scripting person, to spend some time learning how they operate. Text factories are another awesome piece that are super useful in terms of doing autocompletes. But if you decide that $50 is just too much to spend, you can go out and get Text Wrangler for free. We distribute Text Wrangler to every machine we touch. Why? Text Wrangler, text editor, syntax highlighting gives you some of the basics in a really easy to use package. And it works out very, very well. You can download it from their website directly. It is, again, free. I don't have the icon for MOU yet. It's brand new. It's a markdown editor. It is free for beta use. It was a Kickstarter project that they have finally reached like beta viability with. And if you spend any time working in Markdown, and that by Markdown, if you know what I'm talking about with Markdown, you have probably worked in the open source community a little bit. This is a really awesome Markdown editor. And so it's got awesome syntax highlighting. It will give you some of the overview pieces there. And it's really, really excellent. So again, free to use for now, and it's half price if you want to buy it during the beta period. Script Debugger is one that John Welch sent over my way. Any AppleScript people in the house? I see a few still. That is good. I'm glad you're still here, because that's still a very, very useful part of the operating system. Script Debugger, it has a free trial, and it's $200. So yeah, this is probably the most expensive tool that we've talked about, save NetSpot so far. It comes with John Welch's glowing recommendation, which, if you know John Welch, he doesn't give out glowing recommendations to anything. He did for this. And it's super helpful if you're going to spend any time debugging AppleScript as a whole, because there is no good debugger built into the Apple tools for that. Your script debugger is going to be your best friend. There is a free trial, so give that a shot. We also want to talk a little bit about the command line, because we are all admins. We are all capable of going into that command line and wreaking havoc. We're also capable of fixing things too. So my favorite, who knows what this means? Not nearly enough people. What this basically, have you ever typed in the whole long, like 5-line long command and then hit return and it's like, admin credentials, please? And you're like, grrr! Sudo bang bang. Sudo space bang bang will rerun the last command with sudo in front of it. So now you have 2 sandwiches. Yes, that is absolutely right. This one, that's just a time saver. That's really all that's there for. ARP.A is, again, one of those network tools, and I kind of gathered all the command line tools together to help out with this, but ARP.A gives you your ARP table for the machine. It lets you see what your machine can actually see on the network, which is really, really helpful for figuring out, did I end up on the wrong VLAN this time? Very, very helpful. Airport-I. The information that your airport command at the command line, and again, airport-I is a simplification. They used to link the binary directly. You have to use this, you actually do have to link the binary into your path. It's deep within the 802.11 frameworks. And I'll put something up on my website about this particular piece. But airport-I will give you a good, lengthy list of what I'm connected to right now, my entire airport stack. It's like clicking option click on the airport menu and seeing all of the appropriate information. It's just that you get it back out at the terminal, which is really helpful to put into your scripts. If you're writing a diagnostic script, for example, if you're writing a script to try and troubleshoot an issue for your network, and you have a network admin or a Wi-Fi admin, and you're having all kinds of problems, you want to be able to gather the network stack for your user at that period of time. Airport-I is super helpful for that. NetTop. So who's familiar with TOP? TOP process is running, shows you what's draining down the CPU. NetTop's that, but for your network interface. It's super helpful. IOStat. IOStat is really handy at showing you whether or not there's disk activity present right now. And if you do IOStat-W2, every 2 seconds it's going to show you that something's writing. If you are perhaps in the middle of a disk recovery, and you are not sure if you are getting anything off of that disk at this time, IOStat-W2 will show you every 2 seconds that there's something reading and writing off of that disk. So that you can be sure that even though it's degraded by speed, for example, you might still be getting data off of that disk. Because I don't know about y'all, but I've been on some data recoveries where you're just not sure. You're just not sure if you're getting data off of that disk anymore. Or if it's time to actually just worry about whether or not continuing to have that disk online is actually getting you anything, or if you're running the risk of a further head crash. So IOStat is helpful for that. How many people in this room run source control for their own scripts? That should be every hand. If you write any kind of script at all, set up GitHub, set up something so that you can actually start to do change management on those. Because it's really easy, and I've totally been guilty of this. I had set up a really nice diag script, and then I emailed it off to the client, and just moved it. I don't know where. It's gone now. Git might have saved my bacon at least a little bit that way. I can actually go through and, if I've got an offsite repository, recover from that, or recover a change if I've made a really critical error, like leaving that rf-rm or rm-rf in the middle of the script. That would have been wise. So source control is really, really helpful. It is also a discipline. We are, as admins, constantly focused on the chaos of our lives, because we're the order agents for our given particular networks. We work with a lot of chaos Muppets. And so, when the Bolshevik Muppet blows up the dynamite, you go running around and fix the problem. This will help you be ready to fix the problem. And creating more order in your admin universe is a big part of that. LSOF is list the open files, including the open ports on your machine. And this one's really helpful when combined with grep to work through particular issues. So, like I said before, we are jacks of many trades. And that means that while I might be really great at troubleshooting Open Directory, I might be asked to fix the audio problem that we're having with the conference room right now. That happens. So there are some useful audio tools in your live that can actually help you kind of deal with some of the issues there, especially in terms of like piping sound from one app to another, or actually handling some of the day-to-day sound editing pieces that you might have to do. You might get handed, hey, so-and-so read the script for the auto dialer or for the auto attendant, and they left like 4 ums in there. Can you just cut those out for me? That's what Audacity is for. Audacity is a free open source, directly available audio tool, and it's excellent for that. The guys at Rogue Amoeba have a couple of really nice freeware tools. They also have some really nice for-pay tools, so I'm going to say that you should probably give Paul Pacifist some money if you really need that kind of stuff. But Line In is really, really helpful at shunting audio from one place to another, and so is Soundflower. And they both have their own distinct uses, and you can read more about them at the Rogue Amoeba website. Oh, there we go. Sorry, this touchpad remote thing isn't working as well as I thought. So we're going to also talk about disk tools, because who here hasn't been asked to fix a problem with a disk and deal with some of the nightmares that are data storage problems? I'm very, very thankful that the problems that we're moving from are, oh crap, I can hear the click of death from across the room, to, oh crap, the machine doesn't turn on anymore. Because it's a lot quicker route from there to a data recovery place or to the backup system than it is to deal with spinning bladder drives and some of the other associated pieces along those lines. So the first one we're going to talk about is one that you should know about, and it's Carbon Copy Cloner. It's from Mike Bombick, bombick.com. It is an excellent backup engine. It is really, really helpful at making a bootable clone of your current environment. You can also just make a clone of an existing folder, or of a set of folders, or any subsection of your hierarchy of environment. So Carbon Copy Cloner is also schedulable. It is very, very helpful. We oftentimes use it as like a last-ditch data recovery if the file system still boots, because it will wait and do multiple passes. And if you have a disk that's starting to have problems, you can actually set this to run and just say, I just need you to get it all. Get everything you can. And it's very effective at doing data scavenging in that particular regard. And it's also, again, very scriptable. It gives you notifications. There are if this then that tie-ins that you can write for it based upon email, which is really, really helpful if you've got it set up as a backup engine for you, so that you can say, if it fails, send me an email that says blah, et cetera, et cetera. Disk Warrior, a venerable old Disk Warrior, just got a huge revamp for version 5, and it actually comes in a flash stick now. And you can plug that in, you boot off the recovery partition on a given machine, invoke it from the command line, and then it runs, and it will fix the file system problems that you are having on the machine, or at least tell you if your disk is beyond repair. Disk Warrior is my last good line of defense in a lot of cases. If Carbon Copy Cloner has failed, if I can't seem to actually make the disk mount anymore, the only thing that's going to fix it, short of a trip to drive savers or its equivalent, is going to be Disk Warrior, and that's why I keep a copy in my bag. However, I do have to make a caveat about its licensing agreement, because it's very, very important. When you buy a copy of Disk Warrior, you are buying it for one machine. There is no technician license for it, which is kind of a bummer. I really wish they'd change their mind on that, because I'd probably spend a lot more money with them that way. But in theory, you're supposed to use it on a given machine and then leave the disk behind. They do have a reseller program now, so if you're interested in that, you can do that. You get the disks at a discount, and you can sell them right to your clients that way, or have department funds available in those particular cases. They also offer bulk purchase ability in that space. So, I'm sorry? You can storm their offices with pitchforks. I don't recommend it. They do not take on the civil disobedience. There's also Data Rescue. Data Rescue is excellent at reading a physical disk, looking for what might be contained thereon. For example, if you take a disk and you just say, erase that. You're not going through over the disk and writing over ones and zeros over top of what's currently there. You're just stripping out the file system hierarchy that's present so that the computer knows where to go on the disk for the physical file. So the files are still there in a lot of cases, and if you're like me and you accidentally erase a camera memory card with all of the photos from your vacation, because yes, that has happened, Data Rescue is excellent at figuring out what files go where and in what parts. And so it can be useful as scavenging your environment. I have not used PhotoRec, so I can't tell you. That's a really good question. I don't know. I'll find out for you. So the next part that we're talking about, who here is going to the second half of Rich and Vanessa's section on documentation, which is coming up next? I am. That's going to be a really good talk. Documentation and mapping of your environment are what allow you to be, well, I'm not going to say the word replaced because that's unkind. It is, however, going to let whoever comes behind you have a bit of an easier time. I'm big in favor of that simply because if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I'd want to make sure that my clients were taken care of, or that they didn't have to rebuild everything. So one of the things that we focus on is a good open public file for them that has documentation about their environment, network maps, and things along those lines. So the first tool that I love is OmniGraffle. And OmniGraffle it's Visio for the Mac, only a lot less expensive and useful. And designed with a good user interface by people who actually care about such things. The Omni Group folks are tremendous, and I'm recommending 2 of their products today. They have 2 more. If you're interested in OmniPlan or OmniFocus, come find me at the break and we can chat about those and maybe some of the pros and cons of using them in a sysadmin environment. So this is an OmniGraffle document here. And if you've ever been to Washington, D.C., you know that, damn it, I'm putting this down. This is RFK Stadium, and this was the configuration for the Foo Fighters concert on July 4th. And we got brought in because they asked us, we need a point-of-sale network on the field, and we need it in a couple of the stands, and then we need all of backstage wired because their rider says we have to provide internet access for every dressing room. So we said, okay, and went and walked the property and built this map out of it. And you can see that you can do Bezier lines, and you can do straight lines and diagrams and the whole 9 yards. You can also build network maps out of these exact kind of things. You can lay down the blueprints that you've got, drag a physical switch onto the map. And there are stencils for pretty much every family. And the other nice thing is that you can import Visio stencil sets, which is awesome because most network providers of equipment out there provide Visio stencils for exactly this kind of purpose. I love this. This is great. So you can see I've got, the Ruckus wireless one, I've got the WatchGuard Visio stencils, I've got an Apple hardware one up there, and you just drag and drop, and you can label the boxes, you can do all kinds of awesome things, and then you can print them all out when you're done. We keep an OmniGraffle file for every network that we touch. It's just so that we know where all the pieces fit together. I'm a really visual learner. And if I can remember what the server rack looks like from top to bottom, I can tell you that, okay, the third switch from the top is open on ports 5 and 6, and so you need to run a cable from there to up into port 24 up on the top patch panel. And so OmniGraffle is really helpful at helping us build that over time. Their software updates really, really regularly and always for each of the major operating systems. And they always keep adding in cool new features. So I'm a huge fan. Omni Outliner is what I wrote this talk in. And it ranges from $50 to $100. There's an iOS version as well. There's also an iOS version of OmniGraffle. And they have a sync service that they provide to their customers for free. So that it's based on your email address and tie-in and things like that. And it actually allows you to move your files back and forth all the time. So you can pull up a map on your iPad that you build in OmniGraffle. Same, you can pull up an outline that you write in OmniGraffle on your Mac on your iOS device. And what it allows you to do is start to work in styled documents. It's an outline software like you've actually always had. And tiered text and graphic drops and web links and the whole 9 yards. Everything works in there. And just drag and drop anything in it. It's super helpful. There's also Dash for looking at documentation for any given specific program reference. Dash is $20. For example, here's the Swift reference up in Dash, and I figured I'd want to learn a little bit more about protocol-based programming. And I could read all about array buffer types. I don't know what array buffer types are because I'm not a programmer. But they do make the documentation look really, really nice. Any large PDF file, any large man file, anything that you want to put in there, you can shunt directly into Dash. There's an iOS version as well as a Mac version. One of the really important things that we don't talk enough about network-wise, or as sysadmins generally speaking, is that physical tools matter. The raft mattered very much for Zelda and getting around the world of Hyrule. And one of the most important things that in my bag is this cable tester from Klein Tools. I bought it at Home Depot for about 40 bucks. And it has 2 parts. You plug the cable in both ends, you hit the test button on the front, and it tells you if the cable's any good. So if you've reached a point where you have a user who's wired into your network, who's having a really bad time on the network, go test that cable run. You're going to find maybe a short in pairs 7 and 8. And because those aren't used except when heavy data transfer starts to get used, you might have a short in your cable in the wall. Or the patch cable got run over by, what have you. So a cable tester is your friend. It helps you eliminate where problems may not be. And that is excellent. And coupled in with your cable tester is a cable crimper. Every Ethernet cable should go white, orange, orange, white, green, blue, green, white, brown, brown. It should do that if you've got a good, reputable wiring guy. How many people here work for small business? A pretty fair number. How many of you knew that your boss hired the electrician to run your data cable? And ran it white, orange, white, green, white, blue, et cetera, et cetera. And a good cable crimper will let you fix that. Because you just chop off the ends with one of these and you strip the coating off. If you want, we can actually have classes on how to do this at the break today. I'm more than happy to teach anybody how to make a patch cable, because this is something you need to know as an admin. You need to be able to take a broken cable that somebody yanked the cable in half or ran it over or cut it up with scissors and actually turn it into a working Ethernet cable. So get a set of cable crimpers. They're like 20 bucks. Again, going back to the disk image issues and the disk issues that we were talking about. This is a Voyager a Voyager S3 from Otherworld Computing, which is macsales.com. They run 35 to 75 bucks depending upon what interface you need. If you need FireWire and eSATA, you can get FireWire and eSATA on the really expensive one. If you just need USB 3, which is pretty much all we need anymore, it's 35 bucks. With plus shipping and tax. And you throw a drive in there and it's a direct interface USB 3 to the actual serial ATA interface. And it's great for just shucking a drive out of its interface and just shunting it right into your system so that you can start to work on it. One of the other pieces, they also offer interfaces for the SSDs that are in many of the Macs. They don't have one for the 2014 MacBook or later yet because it uses a special connector. But their Envoy series of SSD drives are meant for case includer. So, we also talked a little bit about spectrum analyzing in our Wi-Fi workshop yesterday. This is the Wi-Spy, and it will hang off right off your top. It's got a little hook that'll hang right off the top of your screen. It'll let you actually do 2.4 and 5 gigahertz spectrum analysis so that you can spot the unshielded microwave that at lunchtime nukes the 2.4 band near your kitchen. This happens all the time. Jeanette Lee from Ruckus Wireless tells this story, that she got called out to figure out why they were having trouble, and they would lose their entire 2.4 band for half an hour every day around noon. And she got there and she set up the spectrum analysis, and she didn't even have to look at it because everybody came in from lunch. They had 8 microwaves in their kitchen, and everybody was just taking turns nuking lunch. And off goes the 2.4 spectrum. It's a little harder to find that random piece of AV equipment that's Bluetooth based and it's just broadcasting like crazy right over top of your 2.4 signal. What Wi-Spy and Channelizer, which is the software that's displayed on the laptop there, will show you is that interference has many patterns. And non-Wi-Fi interference has very specific wavelengths and very specific wave patterns, and it will help you match them. It's not cheap. Again, we're looking at $850 to $2350 depending upon exactly what you need to carry with you. And which version of Channelizer you need and all sorts of things like that. So be aware that there are a lot of expensive tools that you can buy. You may not need a spectrum analyzer if the Wi-Fi network isn't your problem. So I'm going to say that again. You may not need it. It might be cool to have, but you might not need it. So that's one of the more expensive tools, and also in the list of expensive tools is the network multimeter. Who knows what an original Fluke multimeter does? Yeah, this is the network version of that. This is essentially a little tiny computer that jacks into any Ethernet jack that you find, will actually issue a DHCP request and get an IP address back, will let you ping, will let you trace route, the whole 9 yards. They are stupid expensive for reasons I cannot establish. So in many cases, it might be cheaper to just buy a PC netbook for like $400. It's $600 on Amazon right now. That's the $1,000 version. Yes. Yes, I'm very sure because I'm in the market for one. And because my old landscaper tool died and you can't get them anymore. They were awesome at about $400. You can still buy them from, if your university or workplace is a member of certain electronics buying clubs, you can still get old discontinued models for about $300. And it's a really nice heavy duty tool that will again plug into any network, issue ping commands, get DHCP addresses, the whole 9 yards. So very, very helpful. But yeah, the link runner from Fluke is kind of the peach of the bunch. So we've got about 25 minutes left, and this last part's probably only going to take about 15 minutes, so we're going to have plenty of time for questions or suggestions of other tools. When we finish up, I am going to ask you to use the microphone to ask your questions so the recording gets out to everybody. But before we do that, I really want to talk about the most important tool that I can give you today, and that's everybody else in this room. You are all tools for each other. Community is really important. I can't believe I just called all of you a bunch of tools. I probably should have thought about that a little more carefully. And now I'm bright red. But my point is, the MacAdmins community is awesome. And they are the most giving group of sysadmins I've ever met. Cisco guys are gruff. Vax guys are old, and nobody talks about the PC guys in a very nice tone of voice. Sorry to any PC admins in the room, especially sorry to any Vax admins in the room. But community matters. And the MacAdmins community is a particularly good example of that. And there are a lot of ways that you can give back to each other as a community and provide tools for the community. And I don't mention GitHub in here, I probably should, but there are a lot of ways that you can open source the scripts that you're writing on a daily basis in a sanitized fashion so that other admins might benefit from that. Because chances are you can benefit from their code as well. There are lots of little bits and bobs in Monkey in a Box that I borrowed with permission from Tim Sutton and Rich Troughton and a bunch of the other guys out there in the world who are building these tools on the regular that we use on a daily basis. So I strongly encourage you to start to give back if you possibly can. Some organizations prefer that their staff don't open source their code. That's okay. That is just fine. That is where you work too. That doesn't mean that you can't ask for help from other people. And in fact, you should. So the first place I want to talk about is Slack, which is fairly recent. If you go to macadmins.org, you can request a Slack invite to your email. How many people in this room know what I'm talking about when I say Slack? It's group chat, but like on steroids and maybe given some mutation drugs. It's designed around the theory that you get a bunch of people in the same room. They might want to trade files around, code snippets, graphics. They might want to attach Word documents to that chat flow and work in that particular space. So it's a really nice interface as well. It's got a Mac app, it's got a web app, it's got an iOS app. It's pretty excellent. And so this was Shay Craig talking a little bit this afternoon about a piece of his of using Vim of all things with this airline screenshot up there. And so, you guys can talk back and forth. That's Elliot Jordan who wrote AutoPackager up there as well, or is participating in AutoPackager. So it's a great place to see a lot of people ask good questions and to think about a lot of interesting good things. I have cards up here that you can take with you. If you don't want to sign up right now, you can sign up later. It's got the URL. And it is listed as a free, friendly, open community for Apple technologists. So you don't have to be an expert to join, you just have to be free and friendly. So. The other community that's out there that's really helpful in a real-time fashion is the IRC community on Freenode. And for those of you who remember the early days of the internet and IRC, I met my wife on IRC. Yes, I'm just that nerdy. No, you know what? Honestly, I'm actually really proud of that. So anybody who wants to give me crap about that, come find me, and you can buy me a beer, and I'll tell you all about it. But it's a story, believe me, it's worth hearing. The OS 10 server and OS 10 backroom channels on irc.freenode.net, you can access through any of those clients up on top, or any IRC client of your choosing, any IRC bouncer of your choosing. And there's a link at the bottom to an AFP field guide to IRC. If you have never ever been on IRC, there are some things that you might want to understand before you end up there. And the field guide is pretty helpful in terms of explaining some of how IRC actually operates, what the channel structures mean, how you actually join and leave a channel, what your NIC does for you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the field guide is super helpful in that regard. And you can always log in through webchat.freenode.net, and don't feel like you need to have a registered account. It's just helpful. So IRC generally looks like this, and this was a conversation this afternoon between Greg Nagel and Jesse P. about Apple's content delivery network. So, and how you end up with different catalogs, software catalogs potentially, as the software catalogs propagate out through the CDN. Also, if you are not on the Mac Enterprise list, I strongly recommend that you get on the Mac Enterprise list. There are a lot of helpful things there. And that is the URL. It is hosted here at PSU. And they have a lot of really good people. And it can be high volume, but that doesn't mean it's not high signal too. So it is one of the more high signal lists that I am on. Here is that list that I promised you of all of the crowdsourced tools. I have not clicked that link since we started this session. I hope you were all nice people. But that kind of takes us through most of the meat of our presentation today. Let's go see if there's anything different that's up there. Lastly, if you want to subscribe to my newsletter, there it is. There's my Twitter, and that's the end of the show. Let's go see if there's anything else that's added to that list. Xcode's property list editor is mentioned as part of Xcode, which is in the App Store or on the developer site. I believe that's Nick McSpadden talking here. Let's see. Oh, thanks for moving the form around there, Google. All right. Cool. iStumbler, yes. Similar to the Wi-Fi scanners, but it's written by an Apple engineer who was the lead on the Apple airport development project. So iStumbler is super helpful, and if I remember correctly, is still free. Oh, it is charged now.
It has free trial.
Free trials. Who doesn't love free trials? I love free trials. Let's see, more bare bones. iTerm and other command line replacements. If you don't particularly care for Apple's terminal environment, that does not mean that you do have to use it very much longer. There are many other different free terminal environments that are out there. iTerm, I think, is paid for. No, that one is free then. Okay. Let's see. Oh, there is another one that is excellent that I'm going to talk a little bit about that I just got up here. Let's see. Yes. Oh, yeah. We'll put the Bitly back up. So yes, if you haven't gotten the link, this is the link. So that's capital K, uppercase T, lowercase z, lowercase m, capital Q, capital Z. Everybody good? All right. So for example, let's say we're deep in the library environment here, and I've gone down into the caches and back into CloudKit. And now I really want to take a look at this, one of these pieces here in the command line. Oh. This is called, hold on, let me find it. It's in the list. No. I'm looking looking for it now. Can't seem to find it. I just installed this and I thought it was the coolest thing. There it is, Go to Shell. Go to Shell is the name of tool. And it's a Finder extension. It puts a button in the top of your Finder window, so that in any Finder window, if you click that Shell button, it will open a shell, take you to that folder that you're currently in. That is super awesome, and it's free. So that one is super awesome. Let's go back to our, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So for example, like when we were talking about the airport,
yes.
If you go to the Wi-Fi icon, you gotta move and if you click option and click, you'll get more information.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, the option click is a very handy extension of the option there. So yeah, it'll show you the battery is currently charged. And the option will also change some of the pieces here so that if you have a movie, for example, in Quick Look, you can actually just start to play it directly by holding down the option key and hitting the space bar. iStat menus, so yeah, iStat menus is an option. I have not found that they are CPU efficient enough to justify day-to-day use. They are super helpful at determining things like how hot your fan is running, how hot your machine is running, and things along those lines. So yeah, there are options. It's at bjango.com, bjango.com. And yes, there are some good pieces there, so it'll show you exactly how hard your CPU is working, how much RAM you're using, in just a graphical unit that ends up on the top menu bar. Let's go back to our list here. Prompt 2 for the iPad from Panic is an awesome terminal application for your iPad. So if you can SSH somewhere, it is an excellent little piece of technology. It's available in the MAS for a reasonable price. Ditto and rsync are helpful for copying data. Ditto is designed to move files, not just the files themselves, but their metadata, such as the users and permissions associated with those given files. Let's see. IOSnoop and OpenSnoop are helpful for seeing file system or seeing disk activity. FS Eventer kind of got broken with Yosemite. I'm hoping that one day we'll see that work again. Yeah, it's as it says, it's like diff but with pretties. SuperDuper is very similar to the Carbon Copy Cloner. It's a backup engine and is shoot.
But no, it will stop on error.
Yes. Yes, it will stop on error, and I believe it does not notify currently. Yeah, it stops. That's the problem. Let's see here. What else do we have? A Thunderbolt cable, very, very helpful. Actually, that's not a bad thing to keep in your bag, especially as target disk mode is still very, very useful. Charles Proxy is very, very helpful if you want to start to work on HTTPS snooping and figuring out what kind of things are actually getting passed over an HTTPS connection. Damien, can you come over to the mic real quick? We do want to try to use the mic where we can.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, David.
So first, congratulations. Awesome presentation.
Thank you.
Very good. I have two things to recommend. One is related to OmniGraffle. I actually was a little surprised it wasn't up there, and that is Graffletopia.
Oh, yes.
Which is a collection of, I guess they're open source. I suppose they are.
There's some, Graffletopia kind of got rolled into a for-pay service. So you get like one template a month for free. And then after that, you end up starting to pay a management fee.
It's collections of icons and things that you load into OmniGraffle.
Yes.
And the second is Pacifist, which will let you crack open Apple packages to find out what.
Yes, Pacifist was up there.
Oh, was it there?
Yes,
okay.
We did get it. We did talk a bit about packages. It is very, very useful at cracking into things. Bonjour browser is mentioned up here, which is super helpful if you want to actually take a look at the Bonjour services available on your network. And I'll bring this up to the top of the screen here, if I can. Come on, tool. Where are you? I'm sorry? So that's interesting. I can't actually get this window up out of the main window here. So let's switch to mirror mode here. Oh, thank you. Let's see if aha, there we go. So this is Bonjour browser. It will actually take a look and see what services are available in your particular space. Somebody has SSH turned on? Oh, a bunch of people do. Who wants to give me their username and password? No. But yes, this is available. This is free if not cheap. And it's very helpful for actually looking at what's actually advertising services on your given network that you can see via Bonjour. So very, very helpful. So say that, go back over to the mic over there and you're going to tell us that again because that sounds really important. Go ahead.
Actually, more of a question for you.
Shoot.
What do you use to share, because documenting admin passwords for various clients can be a living hell.
Yes.
What are you using to share that amongst your own team members in a secure way?
In a lot of those cases, we'll use encrypted disk images and text files contained therein. And so we will create a disk image that is encrypted separate and pass that back and forth via USB key when I see my partner in person, so that if his machine is compromised, one, his laptop is already encrypted, and I've handed him a second encrypted file and contained therein. So if they manage to coerce his file vault password, they would also have to coerce the given password file for the password that's all. But there's another solution for that. Luis Geraldo has written one called Monkeybox. Not to be confused with monkey in a box, but Monkeybox, Monkeybox. And it is a secure method of documenting passwords for transmission between you and your client. Head to the mic there.
On this particular thread, keychain will let you make secure notes inside keychain,
yes.
And they're encrypted as well.
Yeah, you can also store them as secure notes in keychain, which are then encrypted by the same keychain password. But then if they got your password, your host. You have something related directly?
I do.
Yes. 1Password does offer the ability to share a repository. And so having shared repository in 1Password can be very, very helpful in that regard. LastPass will, yeah. Go ahead.
Two free tools one's called Keka, K-A-K-A. Lets you encrypt all kinds of files, zip, all that kind of stuff. It has its own proprietary zip 1.2, but all the other standards and ISO and DMG and all that. Another one is MacDropAny, lets you sync your home folders to Google Drive. So when you drop files to your desktop, they auto sync any folder that's associated with your home directory.
Cool.
It's pretty handy. I'm using it right now.
So that's called MacDropAny.
MacDropAny, and I think it's MacDropAny, and
cool.
It's made by a teenager, I think.
Cool.
And they're both free.
K-A-K-A,
yeah,
I think.
Keka.
Keka?
K-A-K-A, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
I had a couple free tools. One was Atom. It's a free open source text editor, very similar to Sublime, and it's very hackable, as they call it, so you can kind of customize it however you want. Second one was GitFat. If you're managing your Monkey repository with Git, it kind of handles the large files like your packages and things like that. And then one was a note about the link runner.
Yes.
We have the expensive $1,000 one. If you have a big environment, though, one thing I didn't know about it until we actually got it was if you plug it into a port, it'll actually tell you what port on what switch it's plugged into if you have like a Cisco or HP or anything that supports those protocols, including the IP address of the switch. It also has a toner. It's a digital toner, though, so that you don't have to send an electrical current over the wire. And so in case it is plugged into a switch, it's not going to send voltage into your switch.
Right, and the new version of the link runner will also detect PoE.
Yes.
And so it will let you know, am I on a hot PoE port? Is there enough voltage to power my access point, for example? Do I have a dead access point, or do I just not have enough PoE? So those are good options. Other questions, concerns? You guys have been awesome. Oh, one more question. Nmap. Nmap can be very, very helpful in that regard. And it is definitely worth exploring from the command line. So,
SSH copy ID. It's a pain to install once it's there.
SSH copy ID, which does?
It sends your certificate to the target machine so that you no longer need a password to log in.
Very, very handy. So yeah, you can actually just log in directly at that point with certificate and public and private key encryption.
SSH-copy-ID.
SSH-copy-ID. Perfect. So thanks everybody. We're going to go to break a little bit early here. You guys have been awesome. Thank you.